Morning. This is the second day of my coverage of South by Southwest in Austin, and I want to share with you a brief interview I did with one of the speakers at a panel that I attended yesterday. The panel was titled The Path to Conscious AI. Well, that was one of those big topics that I was really looking forward to hearing about here at South by Southwest, because of course AI is one of the big topics for the whole conference. And in this one, there were four people on a panel at the Marriott, and the one that interested me the most, or I kind of resonated the most with, was named Michael Graziano, and he's a professor of neuroscience and psychology at Princeton. And he was clear, he was kind of optimistic, and I asked him a question in the period after the talk about is meditation of any use, or is it involved in any of his research on consciousness? And he had an interesting answer, and then you'll hear him talk about that as well. So it's great just wandering around South by Southwest and running into people and making connections and then having conversations like this one. I'll let Michael introduce himself to you.
I'm Mike Graziano. I'm a professor of neuroscience and psychology at Princeton University. And I've studied lots and lots of topics in neuroscience mostly, but for the last 12 to 15 years I've been studying consciousness. What is it? How does a brain produce it? And lately how you can build it, and whether that's even a good idea or not.
Well, so 12 years ago, there wasn't any AI to really worry about or think about. Did sort of AI come for you after you had spent a decade thinking about consciousness, and all of a sudden you were asking some pretty relevant questions?
I think that AI has been around for a very long time, but it was at a very simple level, and nobody thought it would take a giant leap like it has, right? And so my book actually has my early book from the way back at the beginning of all this. I have several books since then, but the early work wrote a little bit about AI. I mean, I thought about it, and that always seemed to be terribly important for some distant future, right? That distant future is roaring up at us real fast. But the one thing that I always said and still believe is that consciousness is not a philosophical question. It's a practical, economic question. It's a question of public policy. It's a question of right now. It's an AI question. And that's where the theories of consciousness will have their final battle, is in AI, right? So when I first started this work, philosophers just debated, and nobody was talking about concrete engineering principles and what it really meant. And so I think AI is already and will change the game, and that's what's going to resolve these questions over what consciousness is.
You had said that in thinking about what can be learned from meditation, you were particularly interested in sort of a focused meditation, like a koan or something. I'm assuming the Zen, you're constantly going back to Mu. How does that help you to understand consciousness in light of the questions that AI is presenting?
I think all kinds of meditation and other altered mind states are really interesting. They say something about the altered computations going on up in there. We happen to particularly be focusing at the moment, one of our lines of experiments, on focused attention meditation. And it can be as simple as you take a person, ask them to focus on their breathing as hard as they can. And of course, inevitably, their mind wanders. And then you say, when you realize your mind has wandered, press a button. And then get back to what you were thinking.
And you can see when they do that and see what the brain is doing?
And we can see what are the networks that are monitoring their own attention. What are the networks that are building models that say, ooh, my mind's doing this now, but I wanted it to do that, right? And so we're interested in what those are. It turns out those are the same networks involved in understanding other people and reading other people's minds from subtle cues.
Right.
And so this is really interesting to us, and this actually does help us understand potentially how to build the stuff and what impact it might have, how it might influence AI and how people and AI get along with each other.
You know, the reading, I don't know if it's the body language or your voice or something, you seemed like the least scared person on the panel about what's coming.
Ah.
And is that just because you're a mellow guy,
Yeah.
or is what you've learned about consciousness give you a little more serenity as this train approaches?
All of those. I'm a mellow guy, and also I think that humanity has faced all kinds of technological advances that have impacted us in really weird ways. So I often wonder if you could go back 20,000 years and go talk to a caveman and try to tell him, like, this place you're looking at, it's going to be all concrete, and there's going to be like buildings everywhere, no more wildlife, and people are going to sit in little rooms pressing buttons on a keyboard, and that's their life. And the caveman would think, this is a tragedy, like, this is the scariest dystopian future imaginable. But here we are, and we're okay with it because we're used to it.
Yeah, right.
So I think, the future will come and people will be fine with whatever weird situation it is.
I'm picturing a caveman South by Southwest panel where they have to grapple with like fire or the wheel.
Yeah.
And oh my God.
That's right. That's right.
And what's if someone's curious about your work, what's your most recent book about it that would be of interest?
Right. So the most recent book is called Rethinking Consciousness. And so you can look that up online. You can also just look up, I have a webpage, the Graziano lab at Princeton. There's a Wikipedia page on me. There's a Wikipedia page on my work. So there's all kinds of different sources you can look up. So yeah.
When I think smart people in Princeton, I think of Einstein. Does he have anything to do with your work, or?
Well, I mean, that's an interesting question. A, I love Einstein. B, I was a physicist in an earlier incarnation of my life, so I studied his work really deeply. And he was an interesting guy.
I noticed that Mike talked about understanding consciousness can help people in AI get along with each other. I thought that was kind of humorous, and I saw a little bit of it in the hallway because on the stage or in the room where the presentation was made, he and another one of the panelists, Anil Seth, who was a professor at University of Sussex and has been studying research in brain consciousness for 25 years. They kind of got into it with each other. One would say something, and it wasn't exactly point counterpoint from the old days on 60 Minutes, but there's differing opinions that were engaged with in a way that was very informative. And then afterward in the hallway, they greeted each other in a friendly way and kind of referenced the fact that they had been disagreed. And I think they maybe end up on panels in other situations. But a friendly, two people who are very in tune with their own consciousness, engaging in a peaceful and friendly way after the engagement. I thought that was a good sign. And just that optimism that Mike expressed, it certainly resonates with the way I see the world and the way I see technology. I'm glad there are people who are so focused on the problems and the challenges and the things that need to be taken care of in advance. And I'm also glad there are people like Mike Graziano who enter this with a spirit of almost play, curiosity, and a confidence that we will somehow muddle through this. That's kind of my belief as well. Thanks for watching.